It is day 69 of Donald Trump's war in Iran, and there's one thing we can now say for certain. Donald Trump is nonsense, and his words mean nothing. This is what his unnecessary and illegal war in Iran has further revealed to the American people, and importantly, to America's allies and adversaries around the world. Here's what we know. Whatever the ceasefire is supposed to be is not holding, because Iran and the U.S. exchanged fire in the Strait of Hormuz for the second day in a row. The New York Times reports, quote, the United States said it had fired on 2 Iranian-flagged oil tankers on Friday as Iran's foreign minister accused Washington of a reckless military adventure and of undermining diplomatic efforts to end the war. The latest strikes came a day after the U.S. military and Iran exchanged fire in the Strait of Hormuz, fighting that the Iranian military said was triggered by an earlier U.S. attack on another Iranian tanker. The U.S. attacked Iranian military sites yesterday in response to Iranian strikes on U.S. Navy ships. And here is Donald Trump today saying words.
They trifled with us today. We blew them away. They trifled. I call that a trifle. I'll let you know when there's no ceasefire. You won't have to know. If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know. You're just going to have to look at one big glow coming out of Iran. And they better sign their agreement fast.
If those words don't make sense to you, don't worry. It's not you. It's him. Because those words are nonsense. That answer is just a roulette wheel of words strung together, devoid of meaning or connection to reality. The Trump administration is supposedly waiting for Iran to respond to their latest proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and end the fighting as peace talks resume. 4 people familiar with the document tell the Washington Post that a confidential CIA analysis delivered to the administration policymakers this week concludes that Iran can survive the U.S. naval blockade for at least 3 to 4 months before facing more severe economic hardship. A finding that appears to raise new questions about President Donald Trump's optimism about ending the war. And there's new reporting in The Atlantic today that Donald Trump is bored of his war in Iran. Trump is tired of the war, which has proved far more difficult and lasted far longer than he had expected. His party's warily watching rising gas prices and falling poll numbers. He doesn't want to be bogged down in a Middle East conflict that some of his predecessors were. He doesn't want it to upend his high-stakes summit next week in China. He's ready to move on. One outside advisor who speaks with him regularly told me the president is bored with the war. Let that sink in for a second. Donald Trump is bored with his illegal war in Iran that is incredibly unpopular, with 66% of Americans disapproving of his handling of Iran barely in its 3rd month of war, a war that's costing Americans every day. The national average for gas prices, $4.55 a gallon, surging more than 50% since before the war started, as expected, because oil went up by that much. In many states, the price is higher. In Pennsylvania, it's $4.69 a gallon. The war-driven inflation is also understandably crushing consumer confidence. CNBC reports that surging gas prices due to the Iran war sent consumer sentiment to a new low in the early part of May, according to a University of Michigan survey on Friday. And companies are feeling the economic pressure as well. Whirlpool's shares plunged more than 20% after the company said that consumer confidence has fallen to recession-level lows because of the Iran war, tanking demand for big appliances. And even though the Pentagon claimed to Congress that Trump's war in Iran only cost $25 billion, the economics professor Justin Wolfers...
Hey there, welcome back into Occupy Democrats. And President Truman is the one who said the buck stops here. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is the only president since whoever said, well, you know, the buck stops in a lot of places, because we now have 10 full years of proof that he will scapegoat and point a finger at absolutely anyone. And in this breaking story, my goodness, let's remember, it's national security and counterterrorism that's the reason Trump claims he went to war with Iran, can't have a nuclear weapon. But the truth of the matter is his complete incompetence as commander-in-chief has been on full display. And in this absurd breaking story, which I'm going to show you in a few moments, we have to remember this is the malignant narcissist who's actually at the helm putting out information and clarity regarding counterterrorism. This guy.
Look, I hate to do it, but I will do it. Nobody can do it like me. Nobody.
Hell, Oscar winner J.K. Simmons can't even keep a straight face when Trump does his claims about his brain.
China has total respect for Donald Trump and for Donald Trump's very, very large brain. He said Donald Trump.
But there is no doubt he is indeed his best owned media pimp.
I understand things. I comprehend very well, okay? Better than, I think, almost anybody.
No, you don't. And this is actually more accurate.
The level of stupidity is incredible.
Yes, that's what we call you.
How would you run a government to make it more effective?
I used to use the word incompetent. Great competence. Now I just call him stupid.
What would be your criteria in choosing?
I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated.
Except in this breaking story, Donald, it seems you can't spell words.
I know words. I have the best words.
The senior administrators.
But there's no better word than stupid. We have to get the best people. We need to get the best and the finest.
Yes, we do, Donald, but you still think you're the best.
I would give myself an A+.
Thanks for this, because we are in real trouble.
And if we don't, we'll be in trouble for a long period of time.
Now, who are you again? Wannabe dictator?
I'm the king. I'm the king.
Oh, yep, the king. You've mentioned that. That's why we have no king's rallies. But in this breaking story, you and the best people that you've hired can't even manage to get past 5th grade or 6th grade English spelling and grammar on a counterterrorism document, you clown. Check this absurd breaking story out.
Typo-riddled mess of terror report gets Trump hammered by critics. Written by an intern, critics hounded the Trump administration on Friday after the White House released its 2026 counterterrorism strategy report earlier that morning, which onlookers immediately noticed was riddled with typos and grammatical errors. This entire document looks like something written by an intern, wrote author and foreign policy analyst Kabir Taneja on Friday in a social media post on X. The document, which includes a lengthy foreword written by President Donald Trump attacking the weakness of the Biden administration, includes countless typos. The word capability is misspelled as capability. The word specific is misspelled as specific, and school board is merged into a single word as school board. The document also contains sentences that appear to have words missing. One sentence reads, "Counterterrorism is a core part of the national security mission, which appears to be missing the word of." This was once a serious document written by serious people in both Dem and GOP admins, noted Juliette Kayyem, a senior lecturer at Harvard Kennedy School and former government official. Now it reads like a partisan screed, lacking data or analysis or discussion of capabilities or relative threats, filled with typos, and mocks the American public's intelligence. Beyond the grammatical errors, critics also took note of what some characterized as the Trump administration.
Day 69. The case fire that both sides are simultaneously violating while both sides claim it remains in effect. The United States firing on Iranian tankers, Iran firing on U.S. Navy ships, and Iranian foreign minister accusing Washington of a reckless military adventure. Trump on camera, "They terrified with us. I call that a trifle. I'll let you know when there's no ceasefire." That quote needs to sit for a moment. You'll just have to look at one big glow coming out of Iran. This is a president describing as potential nuclear scale strike on a country of 90 million people as though it were a punchline, while simultaneously assuring the public that the ceasefire remains intact despite active fire exchanges in the world's most important shopping lane. These statements are not spin, they are not strategic ambiguity. They are words that don't connect to each other or to the events they supposedly describing, strung together by a man who appears to be managing a shooting were primarily through the emotional register of whoever last called him on the phone. The Atlantic's reporting that Trump is bored with the war is the most damning single data point in this entire news cycle, and not because boredom is surprising, it is damning because of what it reveals about the decision-making framework that got us here. A president who started a war without understanding what it would like to take win, who expected Iran to fold quickly, who didn't factor in that Iran has about the decision-making framework that got us here. A president who started a war without understanding what it would take to win, who expected Iran to fold quickly, who didn't factor in that Iran has been under sanctions for 20 years and has institutional capacity to absorb economic pain that a democratic government facing 4.55 gas prices does not. That president is newborn with the consequences of his miscalculation and looking for an exit before his China summit. The CIA assessment 90 to 120 days of blockade survivability, possibly more, means Iran's leverage isn't diminishing, it is holding, and the cost to American households is compounding daily. Justin Wolfer's calculation in the New York Times that the true cost to a typical American household runs to thousands or tens of thousands of dollars when you are accounting for energy-driven inflation across the entire economy, makes the Pentagon's 25 billion figure look like accounting that deliberately excludes the people actually paying the bill. The Strait of Hormuz dimension is the one with the longest tail. 8 years ago, Trump tore up the Iran nuclear deal, a deal that was working, that had strict monitoring, that kept Iran's nuclear program constrained. He tore it up to score a political point against Obama. Now he is desperately trying to negotiate a replacement from a position of weakness, having taught Iran that closing the strait is a viable strategic weapon. Whatever deal eventually gets signed, if one gets signed, we'll have to account for the fact that Iran now it can shut down global energy markets and survive the consequences. That is not a capability they had at the level they have demonstrated before this war. Trump gave it to them. The ballroom comparison isn't theoretical excess. It is a precise description of the priority structure of this administration. Americans are paying $631 billion in additional household energy costs. According to the numbers being cited under oath, Republican senators are working on legislation to fund a billion-dollar ballroom. The same president who promised the war was necessary to prevent a nuclear Iran cannot tell Congress what Americans are paying in gas, in food, in lost economic output. The incompetence isn't incidental to the policy failure, it is the policy failure.